Protect Julian 2K16. Hey guys, today I'm going to be filming my Lady Midnight review, and I'm so excited. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. It's definitely up there with like the Infernal Devices for me, and that is a very difficult task to accomplish. I'm really sorry if my feelings are all over the place during this review, but I mean, it's an accurate representation of how I feel, so we're gonna go along with it. And this is going to be a completely spoiler-filled review, so if you haven't read the book and you don't want to know any spoilers, leave now. Please don't watch the video, unless you like spoilers. Then you can watch it if you like spoilers, I guess. Okay, so the book starts off with Kit and Johnny Rook, and we don't really know who these characters are, but they're new characters, and I'm always happy to welcome new characters. And they just kind of are in a market, and then there's a bunch of random things, and then, I remember when Cameron Ashdown came in, and they were like, the girl with long blonde hair, and I was like, alright, Emma. And then they were like, and then the red hair curly guy, and I was like, who's this? That's not Julian. Julian has dark hair, doesn't he? And I was wondering if, like, my memory was deceiving me from reading the other books, and if it really was Julian, and he just dyed his hair. I don't know, it was very odd to me, because I remember the dark hair being a key asset to, like, his personality and character trait. And then Cameron Ashdown came in, and I was like, alright, who's this dude? And then I thought he was going to have a giant role throughout the entire book, and he did, but he didn't. I feel like he's going to come back in later books and have a much larger role and have conflicted interests possibilities. I don't know, but I don't think that this is the last we're going to see of Cameron Ashdown. And then next, it went to a scene with Emma and Christina on a roof, and I had seen, like, a review of the characters before reading the book, so I roughly knew who Christina was, but not completely, and I love Christina. She's just very calm and collected, but she still realizes the urgency of every situation going on, and she's like, alright, this is an issue, we're gonna deal with it. That's Christina. I love her. She's great. And then honestly, I don't remember much of in between Emma finding the body and then Mark coming back. And then he came back, but in the most deceptive way possible, and he has to help out with the investigation, but he also has the choice to either go back to the Wild Hunt or to stay with his family. And that can't be an easy choice, but we all thought it would be until we met Kieran. And Kieran made this choice more difficult, and then, I mean, later on in the book he made it less difficult, but we'll get into that later. So Mark came back, and it was like this huge ordeal, as to be expected. And this poor kid, he just remembered his family 5 years younger, and so Julian came in, and he thought it was his dad, and I'm sure Julian probably looks like a dad because he's been raising 4 kids for 5 years, and he was only 12 when he started raising them, completely by himself. And that was just so sad, because then, like, Ty and Livy came in, and Drew and Tavi, and it was so emotional. And then Christina came in, and he was like, should I know you? And she was like, no, you shouldn't. And he's like, that's awesome. I need someone that I'm not supposed to know, without prior expectations of how I'm supposed to be. And I'm just, oh, my heart. And then Emma went to Johnny Rook, and he gave her a clue about a house, I believe. I forgot exactly which clue he gave her, but it led them to the house of Ava, and then they found Ava's body with, like, her hand sawed off, and then Julian got shot by an arrow. A poisoned arrow from some random little sniper arrow dude on the roof. And he was, like, so chill about it. Let's find jokes that he made. He made freaking jokes while being shot by an arrow. She goes, why did you pull the arrow out? Because when someone shoots you with an arrow, your immediate response is not, thanks for the arrow, I think I'll keep it for a while. God bless Julian. Oh, and when they were in the car and Emma was trying to fix him, he just had so much faith in her. She was like, I know we can't let the Clave know about Mark, but we still have to let the Clave know about you without letting the Clave know about Mark. And he was like, no, you're going to fix me. And she's like, I am just a child. And then after the whole arrow shooting ordeal ended, and they went to go get waffles, and Christina says, what about the guy on the roof? Do you think he's the killer? Emma goes, doubt it. He has a crossbow, and none of them have been killed with crossbows, but he hurt Jules, so when we track him down, I'm going to chop him up and feed him to any fish. You don't have fish, Julian said. Well, I'm going to buy some, said Emma. I'm going to buy some goldfish, feed them blood until they acquire a taste for human blood, until they acquire a taste for human flesh. Me too, Emma. And then the dance scene, when they go to the theater, what was that? What was that? You, like, teased us with our feelings and then decided to just throw it away like nothing happened. Even Emma said it felt like it didn't happen, and that's how I felt too. Emma's thinking, I'm not sure if that happened, but I'm pretty sure I have some memory of it occurring. Me too, Emma. The only reason I know it happened is because I went back in the book and I read it again, and I was like, okay, yeah, that happened. And then Julian just, like, dead-faced and walked away like it didn't. What the heck, Julian? And then there was this whole frantic, adventurous scene, and then Julian and Emma just go back to the house, and Mark's just chilling with all the kids, and Tavi's sitting in a bowl of sugar, and Julian's like, why is Tavi in a bowl of sugar? And Mark just goes, because he wanted to be in a bowl of sugar. It's great logic. It really is Mark. I love Mark. I feel like he's just like trying to get himself back into this world, and he doesn't quite know how, which you can't really blame him because he disappeared when he was 16, and now he's supposed to be 21, and he's kind of still 16. They don't really say his age throughout the entire book, but I think he's like still around 16 to 18, I guess, and not completely the 5 years that he would have had on Earth since time moves differently in the Wild Hunt. And so with Mark just thinking that, like, the kid wanted to do it, so I let him do it, because Julian had told him that he wanted the kids to be happy while he was gone, while Mark was taking care of him, and that's what he did, but in his own way, not in the parent way that Julian has had to acquire to while he raised them. And it meant a lot to see his character in that setting, I guess, in, like, the mature, person in charge setting when he hasn't been used to doing that for so long. And then Emma got the clue about the convergence site, and she's like, oh, you know, I'm just gonna go check it off alone. And I'm like, wow, that makes for a really great scene, and I know great scenes are coming up due to the fact that you thought you could just go off and do this alone without your parabatai. But no, you don't get to go off and do this alone without your parabatai, because we already did that once, and we saw how much it hurt Julian. But I know that Emma was doing it alone, because when she had done it, she had gone off to, like, with the convergence site with someone, that hurt Julian more, and she was like, maybe if I go alone it won't hurt him as much. No, Emma, it's still going to hurt him. So Emma goes off alone to the convergence site, and she's like, hey, Christina, I can't tell you where I'm going, but you just cover for me, alright? And Christina's like, sure, girlfriend, I'll do that for you. And she does. And so Emma's going off alone, and then Christina goes off alone to Mr. Sterling's house, like, no big deal, just two chicks ruling the world. And as much as I support them and going off alone, I mean, Christina's probably going to be fine because she just has to deal with a werewolf, but Emma's going to a convergence site on ley lines. You can't do that. Especially since you know Julian's going to be pissed at you later about it. And she just did it anyways because Julian was dealing with so much with his family, and she just didn't want to put another burden on him. But I don't think there's I don't think there's a thing that puts another burden on Julian more than Emma putting herself in danger or being in danger in some way. Or just like, Julian has so many burdens, I don't even know if he would notice if another one was put on his shoulder. And then Emma goes to the convergence site, and she sees a lever, and she's like, hey, let me just pull this lever. Because that's what you do when you see a lever. I mean, I probably would have done the same thing, but that's not the point. The point is that Emma pulled the lever, and then, like, the ocean rushed in, and we all know how terrified she is of the ocean, and she's like, you know what? No big deal. I'm floating out to sea right now, suffocating and freaking out and feeling demons grab my ankles, and then Julian is back in his, like, studio, and he's coughing up seawater because she's coughing up seawater, and he's like, what the heck? I'm not even by the ocean. I mean, he is technically by the ocean, but there's no reason he should be coughing up seawater, and yet there he is, coughing up seawater, and he's just like, Emma, and then he rushes off, and then you just see Julian's, like, natural rage, I feel like, when he takes Emma out of the water, and she's, like, finally getting all this stuff out of her system and her lungs and everything, and she just is chill, and she's like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you, I didn't, like, think about it really, and he just flips out. Like, his natural rage and his way of saying what he means when he's mad, I don't even know, but, like, Julian seems to be a very calm character, and then later on Kieran is like, your brother was wrong about you, you're not a gentle soul, and I was like, Kieran, you are spot on, but I love that about him. I love that he's not just a perfect character. Like, he has many flaws, and I feel like one of those flaws is the fact that he can cover up his gentleness, but he also can, like, kill people and feel absolutely no regret if they're endangering his like family, including Emma. And I just like seeing that side of a character, that side of a main protagonist, that side of like a main male protagonist that you don't really see very often because they're supposed to be the hero, and he is the hero, but he's also like a villain in his own way, if that makes sense. I don't know, I don't hate it at all. I absolutely adore it. I adore Julian and his natural rage, because he's just like, you don't get to hurt people and get away with it, so I'm gonna be the rage police and attack you when... Protect Julian 2K16. And then Emma sees a lever, and then Emma goes to the convergence site, and she sees a lever, and she's like, hey, let me just pull this lever. Because that's what you do when you see a lever. I mean, I probably would have done the same thing, but that's not the point. The point is that Emma pulled the lever, and then, like, the ocean rushed in, and we all know how terrified she is of the ocean, and she's like, you know what? No big deal. I'm floating out to sea right now, suffocating and freaking out and feeling demons grab my ankles, and then Julian is back in his, like, studio, and he's coughing up seawater, because she's coughing up seawater, and he's like, what the heck? I'm not even by the ocean. I mean, he is technically by the ocean, but there's no reason he should be coughing up seawater, and yet there he is, coughing up seawater, and he's just like, Emma, and then he rushes off, and then you just see Julian's like natural rage, I feel like, when he takes Emma out of the water, and she's like finally getting all this stuff out of her system and her lungs and everything, and she just is chill, and she's like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you, I didn't like think about it really, and he just flips out. Like his natural rage and his way of saying what he means when he's mad, I don't even know, but like Julian seems to be a very calm character, and then later on Kieran is like, your brother was wrong about you, you're not a gentle soul, and I was like, Kieran, you are spot on, but I love that about him. I love that he's not just a perfect character. Like, he has many flaws, and I feel like one of those flaws is the fact that he can cover up his gentleness, but he also can like kill people and feel absolutely no regret if they're endangering his like family, including Emma. And I just like seeing that side of a character, that side of a main protagonist, that side of like a main male protagonist that you don't really see very often because they're supposed to be the hero, and he is the hero, but he's also like a villain in his own way, if that makes sense. I don't know, I don't hate it at all. I absolutely adore it. I adore Julian and his natural rage, because he's just like, you don't get to hurt people and get away with it, so I'm gonna be the rage police and attack you when you need to be attacked. Julian. The whipping scene. What was that, Cassandra Clare? Why did you have to do that to us? Mark accidentally told Christina that if you took Gwen's cloak, then you would be Gwen of the Wild Hunt. Not like Gwen, but like the leader of the Wild Hunt. And Christina has no interest in being the leader of the Wild Hunt, but Kieran still like hopped on that train real quick, went off and told Gwen, and was like, hey, Mark told Christina, this dumb shadow hunter, I didn't say that he said that, but I assume he said that, how to take over your power. And then they go back, and Kieran's like, cool, I'm gonna get my boyfriend back. Oh, I forgot to mention that. They kissed already, didn't they? I think they did. Yeah, Kieran and Mark, which I was like all for at the moment. And then after this, along with Mark, I was like not feeling it anymore. So anyways, Kieran thought that would bring Mark back to the Wild Hunt. And Gwen was like, yo, I don't know what you're thinking. We're just gonna whip him. And then Kieran flips out, and he's like, oh my god, I didn't even think of that. And I'm like, of course you didn't, Kieran. You're obsessed with him. I don't even know. I don't know what he was thinking. And so they like this tree grows up out of the ground, and Julian's like, wait, no, okay, my brother can't handle another whipping. Like, he already went through so much in the Wild Hunt. And I'm like, no, Julian, he went through a lot in the Wild Hunt, and you went through a lot in the real world, and like nobody should get whipped. Is that a possibility? That would have been great. But instead, the tree grows out of the ground, Julian takes off his shirt, wraps his arm around the tree, and then gets whipped like a couple of times. And Emma tries to go to him, but then they put some magical spell on her legs and she can't move, and every time she tries to move it's like tearing at her skin or something, and then she can feel the pain of Julian being whipped because of the whole parabatai thing, and they like let go of the spell on her legs, and then she ran to Julian and was like, just let me put a healing rune on him, and they were like, alright, but instead she knocked him out, which I did not see coming. I don't know why I didn't see it coming, but I didn't. And she knocked him out and then was like, hey, what about instead of 2 blackthorns, you got 1 Carstairs. And they're like, wow, 2 for 1 deal? Why not? And so they just go ahead and whip Emma. So we just see the aftermath of Julian carrying Emma to bed to try to be like, hey, please don't die. And then Mark picking up Cortana because even in his short amount of time with them, he understands how much Cortana means to Emma, and that just meant a lot to me, that he's caught on to little details like that. And so Emma's in bed, and Julian's, like, dying, basically. I don't know if he can still feel the pain after the whipping is over, or if he can just, like, see how much pain she's in, because she's not waking up, and I think she sleeps for, like, an entire day afterwards, and I'm like, you need to sleep. Please sleep. I can't even, like, imagine how torn up her back was, and just Julian's thought, because he's in love with her, so Julian's thought of, like, the girl he loves being that torn up, just, ooh, tears at your heartstrings. Emma didn't even let Johnny Rook finish. She just called him, and he was like, hey, he always shows up in a robe and talks about love. And Emma's like, Malcolm's the guardian. And then everyone's like, what do you mean Malcolm's the guardian? And so Emma just, like, lays it down for them, and she's like, this is why he's the guardian. And they're all like, crap, Malcolm's the guardian. And Malcolm took Tavi off to his little convergence line, because it's like this crazy dark magic where you need the hand of a cold-blooded killer, and he needs 13 of them, and then the last is Blackthorn blood. And so he takes Tavi, the youngest and most innocent and most vulnerable of all of the Blackthorns, because, I mean, granted, that's the smart thing to do. That's not the right thing to do, but he's also doing dark magic, so he's not doing the right thing in the first place. Julian jumps into leader mode, who doesn't put up with crap whatsoever, and Ty's like, I should go with you guys. And he's like, Ty, I know that you don't like loud situations. And Ty's like, no, I'm gonna go. And Julian's like, alright. And then they all gear up, and they all have this giant conversation while they're gearing up. And Emma just got whipped nearly to death, and she's like, no big deal, I'm a Carstairs, whatever. I mean, I know that she needs to go off to battle because it's Tavi, but still, she, like, doesn't even talk about it. Like, it's not even acknowledged that she just got whipped. And then they get to the convergence site, and there's, like, this giant scene, and Julian and Mark go off, and Emma doesn't know where they're going, but they're all hiding in the shadows, and then Diana's there. And I really like the concept of Diana not being the bad guy, but, like, being at the site where it's happening, because she's been absent for so much of the book, and then she comes at this core point in the book, and then she's like, I know you guys think I'm the bad guy, but I'm really just here trying to help. And they're like, alright, we got you. And then Malcolm comes in, and they're like, there's the bad guy. There's the guy we're trying to kill here. Emma can almost hear Julian, like, in her head telling her to wait, and then she's like, we can't wait anymore. And so they all, like, dive into the battle, and then Mark and Julian and Kieran, like, come in with the horse, and it busts the, like, protective barrier around Tavi. He got Tavi, and he just darted out of there. I was like, you go, Julian. You save that little 7-year-old. Poor Tavi. Tavi doesn't deserve any of this. And then all of the fighting scene is over, and they go back to the house, and Jace and Clary and Magnus are there, and I just got chills. And then the scene where I think, okay, so Diego got really badly injured, and so Christina's taking care of him, and then I think he wakes up and they start kissing, and then Mark sees them kissing, and he just goes out and he sits outside and he's like, I should have stayed in the Wild Hunt. And I'm like, what in the world? You don't get to choose that you want to stay on the Wild Hunt just because this one girl that you, like, kind of sort of like is kissing perfect Diego. Like, you have your entire family to worry about. You can't be mad about perfect Diego and Christina. You have a family that needs you to stay there. You should not go back to the Wild Hunt. And then they jump to the scene, and I was like, alright, well, Johnny Rook's about to die. Here we go. And then he texts Emma, and then Emma comes running, and then she's, like, battling demons, and he throws a chair, and he's leaping up all over the place. And then he sees his dad torn in half. Like, this poor kid. And then Tessa comes in, and Jim comes in. It's just these, like, casual introductions for them. He's like, I see this kid with dark hair, and then, like, this really pretty young girl with brown hair, and it's Tessa and Jim. And then Emma comes in, and she's like, Tessa and Jim, what are you doing here? And she's like, Christopher Herringdale, we've been looking for you. And I'm like, oh my god, it sounds like he's gonna get, like, admitted into the Avengers Initiative. And that's how the book ends. After all of that craziness, that's how the book ends. Thank you for watching.